Hello. What a beautiful intro. This is part 3 of the interviews with the whole band.
Okay.
Where we're breaking down some of the songs from the band and talking about some performative elements, backgrounds as musicians. So I've got my list of questions, which I'll pull up. And yeah, we wanna get to know you, man.
People want to know, man.
So first of all, can you give us a little bit of background in bass and your story?
Right, so a bit of my background in bass. I first picked up a bass when I was in primary school, and I'd have little jam sessions with my best mate Joe. Shout out Joe if he's watching this. And we ended up joining the school rock band together, which was great fun, as dubbed in earlier years before we joined it, the Rockin' Robins. Which is quite cool. And then when we were in it, it was just rock band. So a bit of a downgrade, yes. There you go. Upgrade because we joined.
Yeah, of course.
Not narcissistic. And yeah, so from there, Joe and I moved to secondary school together, having played for a couple of years, and started a band of our own with another friend of ours, Ethan. Shout out Ethan. And we never really had a name, but we used to play little gigs at school all the time, and we'd have just like little intimate sort of studio sessions and things, and that was fun. Yeah, I've never had lessons in the bass ever. I'm fully self-taught, so that would explain why some things are yet to be perfected, shall we say.
No, come on.
But no, there's do you know what I mean? I think I've mastered a few of the techniques to some degree, but there's plenty to learn. There's plenty to learn.
Yeah.
Always. But no, I love the bass. I do play a fair few other instruments, but this is one of my favourites.
A lot of us come from improvised background, from some of us from jazz improv, some of us from playing a chint, obviously. But the question I wonder is, what percentage of playing for the band is strictly improv? Because obviously,
right,
you're not the type of bass player who's just brute notes the whole time.
Yeah.
You love to do across the chords.
A little bit of flair.
Yeah.
There. But I don't know. I think it's important, especially for a good bass line. You need to be able to rely on it to fall back on, right? Because ultimately, rhythm section, bass and drums. Yeah. That's what people play to.
Yeah.
In the main, right? So they're not the main part.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite important to emphasize because they're not. But if you can't follow the bass or the drums, if they're not tight rhythmically or musically in general, then again, more waffle to go around it. But I don't improvise a whole lot when I'm playing natural groove. I usually improvise all of it, obviously, when I'm coming up with it.
Yeah.
And then from there on in, I sort of just stick to a main pattern. I'll just keep that, and then here and there I'll add in little flourishes if I feel it's appropriate. But I don't know. I don't like to add too many embellishments because I think I don't want to take away from the overall song. Or I try not to. Sometimes I get carried away, but one of those things.
I think one of the beauties of playing with you is the fact that I've almost never told you or given you a line. Very, very. Pessimistic, obviously. If it's one where we're all doing.
If we're playing in sync.
Yeah, if we're playing in sync, then sure. But for the most part, I don't tell you anything. I'm just you know.
Just get on with it. All right, you'll be fine.
But what's fun for me, one, because I just know that you're that level musician that literally anything you come up with, I would be yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. There's never been a time where... There's been a few times where I'm can you simplify just this part?
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's 99% of the time I'm just no, that was perfect, so cool. But with that, it's really fun to then go back, because I don't... I'm thinking about all the other musicians, but I'm not really... obviously I hear it, but going back through recordings where you can really hear the bass, I'm oh my gosh, some of the lines you do, some of like you'll just
Flatter
like
me.
oh, it's
Flatter
insane. You
me.
go on the melody like this like sometimes where like
Yeah.
I would never thought I was like, oh my god, it's yeah. If you want to like actually just have your brain blown, like just go back and listen to the recordings and only listen to the bass lines, and the whole time you're just like, what? You mentioned this before. That bass is not like your instrument. Like you have multiple.
Yeah.
So as a multi-instrument musician, what instrument do you think in, and how does it affect how you play for the band?
That is a very, very good question. Because that is the thing I often talk the most about to either non-instrumentalists or mono-instrumentalists.
Yeah.
Just people getting started in music. And I think probably similar to you, I think in piano.
Really? Oh.
Piano.
Yeah.
And for bass specifically, you'd think that it's a bit like guitar, but in the sense of like harmonic progression, I think it makes more sense to try and visualize the chords
Yeah.
in my head, because that way, if you want to add embellishments, then you can follow the natural flow of the harmony, and that seems easier for me to do because piano was basically the first thing I picked up pretty much. So like the amount of time I spent learning the basics and then learning the chords, learning the extensions, and that translates really well into bass.
Yeah.
It also helps that like, you know, I don't know. I mean, like I say helps. It sort of flip side. It doesn't help that I'm not as good at guitar as I am at piano. So it's easier to think in piano than it is to think in guitar.
Sure.
So maybe if I were better at guitar and worse at piano, I'd think in that instead. But yeah.
Just in case you don't know about Max, like genuinely can play every instrument the other person can. Like core members, like insane. Like not Jude level.
No,
but
not Jude. But no,
just Jude.
it's important to say no one is
No.
Jude level.
Yeah,
Absolutely
that's true.
no one.
But like it's actually insane. Like so whenever we're rehearsing, we'll like say, all right, we'll take 5, and Max's take 5 is okay. I'm gonna go to the other instrument and do it like imperfectly. I'm like, what the heck? All right, the next question is, what style or genre do you think you want to explore most? And that doesn't necessarily be. I want 2 answers. One within the band, and then obviously you're a part of your own band and you do your own solo stuff.
Yeah.
So like, what's a genre that you really resonate with outside of the band?
Okay, so within the Razz and the Rose, I think, given our, quite varied musical backgrounds, I think it's nice that we all share a passion for jazz.
Yeah.
I think that's quite like a defining characteristic of each and every one of us, is that like despite our musical differences, like there is an element of a love for jazz in there.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, it would be really, really fun to take a look into that and exploring how that can fuse with other genres as well, because obviously, like, I mean, in different ways, I guess, member to member, but there's quite a unanimous love for rock and roll.
Yeah, sure.
Especially like, you know, Billy Joel.
Yeah. The god.
All hail. Yes. So, but that kind of thing, I think jazz definitely is up there. Because I have a massive proportion of my background in jazz. That was like where I sort of found most of my calling in my musical proficiencies, as it were. But yeah, I think jazz would be definitely a favourite. And then personally, for my own music, I think in the band that I've got with Dylan and Jude, so the Scar, or is it the Scar? I can't remember what we call it. Honestly,
Dylan was just talking about this in his.
Yeah.
Like, we're changing the name.
We're changing it. Don't know what to do, but we're changing it.
Yeah.
That is obviously like very, very metal dominated. But I think there's still a lot more to be explored in that realm, and also to be like inspiration to be taken from other genres and incorporated into that. And then for my own stuff, I really can tell you, I mean, like, I listen to such a wide array
I listen to all.
Yeah, I listen to everything.
Everything.
Everything except country, as everyone says. No, I listen to country as well. But yeah, I think like definitely my taste is dominated by metal, jazz, and then also actually a fair bit of country music or modern country, which I think is quite fun.
The whiskey cowboy.
Whiskey mother cowboy. Because I don't know if he's censoring the interview.
I am. I want you to take us through your mental headspace from day of gig, prep for gig, playing gig, after gig.
Okay.
It's short and condensed.
This
We don't have that much time, but
this might paint me in a very, very bad light.
Ooh! Can you give us the one for Graveyard? Cause
for Graveyard,
that experience.
I think my mentality might be slightly different to your guys's in the fact that like I don't know if music is the thing I'm going to be following in the immediate future.
Sure.
Because as much of a passion as it is, obviously I have my connections to conservation and biology. Yeah. So whenever I go to a gig or go into a music performance, obviously there's that element of, you know, right, you have to turn up, you've got to play, you've got to get to standard, you've got to have fun, because that's what you're there for, yada, yada, yada. But there's never like the, right, this is my career, so I need to make this work kind of pressure, I don't think.
Makes sense. It'd be good to point out that, so obviously all of us in the band are students at Falmouth University at the time of this recording. I'm dropping out now. But
I'm leaving!
I'm leaving. But you are the only core member and also like within the greater bouquet that is Exeter and does not study something within the arts and like performing arts.
Aside from Sasha. She also does biology.
That is also true. I always forget that. She's so music to me. It's crazy. But yeah.
She really is.
So that's so interesting that you kind of view yourself not in that space.
But I don't know, because I also like this is it might get a bit existential for anyone watching this, but like it's also got to a point in my life where I'm like, do I want to pursue music as my career instead of biology? Like, is that my truest passion? Because I never, you know, as bad as it might sound, like you do occasionally sit down to an assignment or a practical, and it's 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, and you're thinking, I would just rather be anywhere than right here. And I've never had that with music, not once. So it's interesting to think about. But specifically going back to your question, so for the Graveyard gig, what I had in my mind was, yay, first headliner, really cool, turn up, set up, play, done.
Yeah.
And that was that.
Simple as.
Yeah.
that tracks.
Right, okay.
I play bass.
I play the bass, I turn up, I play, I go home.
I get paid.
Well,
walk away that time.
money is money.
I've not mentioned that. We don't make money. No, occasionally we do.
Yeah.
Alright, last question. Oh my god. How do you think the Razz stands out, or does it stand out in Falmouth? Why, if so? That was really poorly said, but you know what I meant.
Do you know what? You've asked questions better than I've answered them. But I think the Razz and the Rose does stand out. Mainly for its unique fusion of many genres. I think there hasn't really been a band in Falmouth that I've listened to and thought, wow, you guys are really, really versatile. Like you play loads of stuff. Like, I mean, there also hasn't been a band that I've listened to and been like, I don't want to listen to this anymore. Which is good. Yeah. That's good. Always promising. But no, the Razz and the Rose, I think, might be biased, but you know, I'll leave that judgment to you. I feel like we're the only band that's really, truly blending as wide a mix of genres as we are. Yeah. Like, I mean, you know, you hear people that do a fair job of it. So you've got like Ducks. Yeah. And they're really
we love Ducks.
massive love
Absolutely
goes out
incredible.
to you. But I think even then, like that kind of, they follow a specific theme in their fusion, and I think, you know, our spontaneity is where we stand out. Like we really just take a bit of everything and just mash it up in all sorts of different ways in loads and loads of different songs. Which I think is really, really unique, and probably like the main reason, aside from all the wonderful band members, that I love playing in the Razz The Rose, because it's just like you never know what you're gonna get. And it's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
I think it's as much as like, you know, one of our things about like when we're marketing the band, it's always like you never know what we're gonna play next. But that's also as true to the audience as it is for us.
Yeah.
Like every rehearsal time, like even if I've written something that I'm like, oh, I like in my head it sounds like this.
Yeah.
The second that I step into the studio, I have no idea where it's gonna go, and we come up with crazy stuff. Well, thank you for doing this interview. That's all the time we have for today.
Thank you so much. No, I really, really appreciate you having me on today. Please make sure to check out our list of upcoming gigs.
Yeah, in
for
the
next
description.
weeks.
Click down there.
Smash that like button
and subscribe.